What's up, everybody? This is Ethan Malone here, and today we're talking about my favorite superhero series, which is the Dark Knight series. But before we get to that, please make sure you subscribe and put a like on this video if you like it, and if you don't like it, put a dislike. It's always good feedback. And just please hit the bell for notifications so you know when I release a new video, because I upload every single morning. And let's dive into this. If this series could be described with 3 words, it would be beginning, death, and resurrection. So in order to fully review this film, we're going to start by splitting it up into 3 parts, just like I just said, except first, we're going to start with characters. I can't quite highlight this enough. In my opinion, the way you write a film depends on this. Which are you focusing on more? The events or the characters? In my opinion, to write a better film, you want the audience to be attached to the characters rather than the events. Because you can have the characters do anything, and the audience is still enthusiastic, and the audience is still entertained. Because the character that they like, that they're relating with, that they feel is so much like them, that they can see, oh yeah, I've experienced pain like that before. Or you can sympathize with them. You never really see that with the Batman from Batman 1989 or the Batman from Batman v Superman. On top of that, every character in these films seems like someone that you could meet any day of the week, right? Even the not so good characters seem like someone that you would still meet. Like people who really do suffer or experience the way that you do in real life. Which is honestly why Batman, not just from these movies, but why Batman himself is such a good hero, is because of the fact that he's so much more relatable. He's more human. He isn't so overpowered like some heroes. He is very down to earth, shall I say. And that is very highlighted in this series on the fact that he is restricted. He is just a man. He may be a man with gadgets and such, but he is still only a man who is being overpowered by, guess what? Only other men. Other people who strive to terminate him or create chaos. So when you see that, it makes it feel so much more like you're attached to the character, because they're experiencing things that you could experience in daily life. Problems that you have had, relationship problems and such. Things that you understand as the audience, and that's what makes this series so great. And we've seen that in other series. The Sam Raimi Spider-Man series, the Tobey Maguire, we saw great character development, and I may make a video about that in the future. Just hang in there. But this Batman series, this is probably one of the main reasons that I like it so much, is because of how realistic and relatable all the characters are. There's no just random, unusual people who you wouldn't hear of on the news. Like, you take the Joker, for instance. We've seen terrorists. We watch the news. We see all these terrorists and such. It's not anything that we wouldn't see on Earth. It's not like some strange and unusual, villain who just shows up from space or something. No. This is so much more relatable than that. It's so much more followable than that. And I hope it didn't just sound like I repeated the same thing over and over. But it truly is the most relatable of characters from not just superhero films, any film. Any film. These films are great. So to dig deeper down on that, part 2, we're discussing the plot of the film itself. And we're going deep into what it is, to the guts of the story. Now, I'm sure you've heard this in English class before, but the way you create a good plot, a good story, is you start with establishing your characters and your setting, then you create a problem, and then in the end, you have a solution. Now, in Batman Begins, we see a problem and solution, but in The Dark Knight, we really don't see a solution. Which is why, in my opinion, you have, in all 3 of these films, the beginning is where we see the problem. And in the end is where we see the solution. And what is so fantastic about these films is the way that it conveys plot itself, the way that you see that there are several enemies besides real physical enemies. Enemies like yourself, enemies like sadness, regret, guilt, enemies like that, enemies that attack your mind rather than enemies that hurt your physical body. It's enemies that hurt your spiritual and mental body. And you see, that's what I admire so much about this film, is how truly deep it is. Like, I could watch the series over and over and over, and I will notice something new that I didn't notice before. Like, each of these films, each of them, even the first one, a lot of people say that the first one is actually their least favorite, or The Dark Knight Rises is their least favorite, but in my opinion, I like them all a lot because of the fact that they all go together so well. It's such a well, shall I say, orchestrated film series that truly highlights less on basic superhero movies, and it starts really competing with just films in general, actually just standard storytelling. It's fantastic world building, fantastic. Every character, like I said before, every character is placed in a certain spot, as the story unfolds, you're going to see them over the series do certain things and become more involved. And on top of that, every aspect of these films, every aspect of it, can be interpreted in a different way. What I love about these is that it gives you a choice. These films give you choices. It manipulates your brain to think more than you would watching any other movie, because of the fact that, and I'm going out of bounds here a little bit, the good and the bad guys are right. In each of these films, you see that what they're claiming is actually true. Take Ducard, for instance, from Batman Begins. He was right that Gotham was crime-filled, that it was infested with thugs and criminals and all sorts of just evil people. Now, what he was trying to do was wrong, but was he wrong? Was he wrong that Gotham was not a crime-infested place? No, he was not wrong whenever he claimed that it was crime-infested, whenever he claimed that it was full of thugs, right? Was the Joker wrong whenever he claimed that Batman would be popular, but then eventually, as soon as people got the chance, they'd cast him out? That they would forget about him, like we saw at the end of that film and in The Dark Knight Rises? Was Bane wrong whenever he claimed that Gotham, once again, was full of criminals, that they didn't deserve to live? Was he wrong about that? And what I love is that each of the villains is also relatable in the fact that in the end you're sort of given a choice. It's like, who's truly right here? And honestly, a lot of times this is one of those series where not every time the hero's right. Not every time. Like, I would say, you take for instance whenever Batman was whenever Batman was going to find who to save, Rachel or Harvey Dent, right? You think he should have chosen Harvey Dent, because if he had chosen Harvey Dent, well, first off, he would have been able to save Rachel, right? Because we know that was switched. And then Rachel would have lived. Harvey Dent would have never grown to be evil, because either way, that's a bad thing. But Rachel would have lived, probably became his wife, and it would be a much happier story. I'm not saying that Harvey Dent had to die, but if one of them was to die, you would, after seeing the film, would probably think it would have been better off if Harvey Dent would have died and been remembered as a hero. And it creates this much deeper conflict for the audience than a lot of other superhero films do. A lot of other superhero films make it so obvious. There's such a fine line between who's right and who's wrong in a lot of modern superhero films, a lot of modern films at all. And these films go to question your brain, to pull strings in your heart and your mind. And it truly, the way that they put these films together, the way that Christopher Nolan put these films together is fascinating. I have done notes on these films. I've taken notes from these films to show how to remind myself of what I should do when writing a film and what I shouldn't do, what to put in films, how to make the audience sad, how to make the audience happy, how to make the audience have to choose. And what's so fantastic, I'm going to this again, I'm going to end off on this. What's so fantastic about this series is it gives you, as the audience, it gives you a choice. And that is why the plot of the Dark Knight series is so great. Now we're moving on to part 2, which is where we talk about the little details that the director put in the film that you might not notice, but after implementing them, it made it a much better film. But before that, really quick, today's video has a sponsor. Let's go. Today's video is sponsored by... Roll it. Wait, what? I could have swore we had a sponsor today. You're telling me that today's video isn't sponsored? Not even by Raid Shadow Legends? Oh, come on, they sponsor everybody. 1,000 subscribers? Oh, we'll get there really quick with my fans. They're awesome. Alright, see ya. Well, apparently we don't have a sponsor of today's video, but we will very soon, hopefully. Just, we'll get there. We'll get there. Well, to begin, you have to start with every piece of set itself. And I actually spent quite a long time watching the bonus features of these films and short little documentaries they put together about how they made them. And to be honest, it was very impressive on how practically every piece of equipment that was used in the film by Batman, such as the Batmobile, his suit, all of that, they actually built prototypes for it. And, you know, nowadays, a lot of times, they just have to animate stuff, especially a massive Batmobile, or the Bat, which was the flying one that they made. But, you know, it's not really a style. Another thing you might want to take into account about these films is the fact that Christopher Nolan, who directed the films, he is very, very detailed about the films that he writes, right? So, if you look at this, like, for instance, the Wall Street scene, where there was the massive battle between the police and Bane's henchmen, well, you think about the fact that that was actual people. In a lot of films these days, they would have animated all the background characters, but Christopher Nolan made sure that they literally hired thousands of background characters, and that little detail makes it look so much more real on the big screen. And that's just one of the examples. But there are many more examples of him doing things like that where everything he does in his films are real. And you know, it's just that little thing that you see in a film that you probably wouldn't notice, but it really does have a massive effect on the cinematicness of the film. Another thing that you have to think about in this film is the score. The music for this film truly is, well, the series as a whole, it's probably one of my favorite soundtracks. And Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard did a fantastic job on these films and writing the score. And they used very out-of-the-box ways of developing a score for such great films. So, tops to them too. That's another detail that you might not think about. Well, that wraps up today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Friendly reminder that I do upload every single morning. Make sure to check out these movies if you haven't checked them out already in your spare time. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. It really helps. And I'm just, you guys are the reason that I make these videos. My little handful of subscribers. Thank you guys so much. See you later.